So basically what we do is we model this for primarily for sales. So having it on your website or in your communities as a way of encouraging sales, but also for community and customer support around answering the sort of most valuable questions. So thinking about like the average sort of chatbot experience you have, but a lot more humanized, a lot more personal, and a lot better answers and directing the users, the customers, to where they need to get to.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this new episode of the Samoto podcast. Today with us, Dan Thomson from Sensay. Welcome, Dan.
Thanks for having me.
Pleasure, absolute pleasure. Listen, I discovered your company a while ago and absolutely fall in love with it. You guys are becoming a member of the Samoto ecosystem, showing how we are moving from just Web3 or blockchain into. I tested the tool; it's fascinating. Tell us what you guys do at Sensay.
Sure. So Sensei is a first and foremost an AI chatbot platform that creates lifelike, autonomous, essentially, chatbots that can be modeled after CEOs or salespeople, or as an abstract brand concept or mascot type thing. So basically, what we do is we model this for primarily for sales. So having it on your website or in your communities as a way of encouraging sales, but also for community and customer support around answering the sort of most valuable questions. So thinking about like the average sort of chatbot experience you have, but a lot more humanized, a lot more personal, and a lot better answers and directing the users, the customers, to where they need to get to. And so that goes a long way. And then that can be deployed both on the website or as a bot into your favorite messaging platforms like Telegram, Discord, WhatsApp.
Thanks a lot. Now, it's quite a hot topic at the moment. A lot of companies of different shape, type, and form are adopting this chatbot. How are you different, first of all, from a lot of the other companies out there? Been around for quite some time. You have a huge following as well on social media. So, what do you do differently?
Yeah, so we have a kind of a long-term goal of these digital twins and virtual humans, basically. And so what we're doing with our chatbots to make a real difference is putting the humanity back into them. So often you find yourself talking to a chatbot and you know it's a chatbot and you can feel it, and it's not helpful. It doesn't get you to the answer, and you just end up typing, speak to a human or whatever, and it just has to escalate it. With us, that's not, it's more of a rarity because you feel like the chatbots are modeled after people or after a character or after some kind of ideal salesperson or whatever the role it is that you're looking for, or community manager type thing. And so they're trained on your data, they're trained on your social media, they have the links that you need to be sent to, they're trained on basically everything that you need, but they have a lot more personality. And so you can actually train the personality behind the chatbot as well in a way that you can't really find anywhere else. And then you can also add voice and video depending on if you really want to go the extra leg on the service you're providing. But fundamentally, it's just we like to say we're putting the humanity back into the AI.
Got it. What are the limitations, though? Because despite how good the company building it is, despite how good the technology is as well. I mean, I guess that if it doesn't get trained properly from the client point of view, there are going to be limitations. So, how do you guys make sure that the data behind are good enough? And maybe what I'm trying to say is when the clients use it, what do they have to make sure in order to provide the right type of information?
Sure. So we've actually built one of the industry's best onboarding systems for creating a chatbot. This basically means that when you start the process of the chatbot creation process, you tie in some of your social media. So this might be your company or your project social media, and it'll pull some of the information from there. It might be from an individual like a CEO or a salesperson, and it pulls the information from there. It then using quite a lot of AI to actually pre-populate a lot of the content on the back end, from the personality to the style, by pulling different information it can find on the internet about either the individual or the project or company. What it does is it enables this, like, in just a few minutes, the chatbot starting point is already pretty great. It has personality, it has style, it has presence, it can match your tone of voice from your different socials. And then after that is when you can then add in your YouTube scripts, your files, your documents, your websites, everything that you want to train it on extra above and beyond the this basic level. But that to actually create that basic level of onboarding, we've made it as simple and easy as possible to be as high quality as possible. And that really, avoids those, low quality ones to start off, or the big sort of lift to actually go and create one. Obviously, if depending on how much data is, depending on how complicated a project or a company is, or how much the chatbot needs to process, the training can take a bit of time after that, depending on the individual and the availability of that data. But as a very starting point, you will get a great quality chatbot in under 5 minutes.
What are the main use cases that you have seen companies using this bot for? You mentioned sales. I can imagine you mentioned a replacement of kind of the CEO that is always the face of the company. What are the most successful ones you have experienced?
Yeah, exactly. Sales is probably the biggest one for us, that we see coming in, the most requested as well. This is, again, instead of having one of those generic chatbots, having the CEO or your head of sales there as a chatbot, or head of marketing, it basically gives you that personal experience, the ability for your customers to get to know not just the brand, but also you as the team behind it. So you can train it on some of the information about yourself. You can train it about whatever you want it to know, and that creates a nice personal touch for it before it's even before you even had to actually meet the customers directly. So it creates that sort of understanding of the team in a way that customers don't usually get. And beyond that, customer service and support is a really important one. So tying it into support logs, helping to answer questions, FAQs, especially in crypto communities, helping with let's say getting the right contract addresses or the right links for the right exchanges, and making sure that it's giving out the correct information. And we've got a very low hallucination score overall in terms of the amount of times our chatbots actually hallucinate is extremely low. So you're going to get good quality information every time that's coming out, and much higher consistency rates than an average human, and obviously a much better response rate, and also the ability to speak in over 100 languages. So customer support is a huge one. You've got the return on investment on it. You're looking at $30 a month compared with any customer service agent, which just would cost how much per hour. You're immediately making a saving just by implementing one of these chatbots anywhere. And then finally, community management and engagement, having again that idea of the CEO or some of the characters, or even like if the project has a mascot or some kind of brand persona that they put out there, having that as an interactive tool for communities on Discord, Telegram, and even Twitter. So it will actually post for you on Twitter. So this is great for intern accounts, ship posting accounts, and also just there as a tool to actually have it as an automatic post that responds and feeds off of the main company accounts and any tags it has.
You actually already touched on a question that I was going to ask you. What are the correlation between your product, the AI bots in general, and the Web3 world? Where you see the intercorrelation? How do you see pollination between the two worlds, or maybe specific use case that you can maybe mention?
Yeah, so a lot of our team come from a Web3 background. So Web3 is kind of in our blood, so to speak, when it comes to work. We launched a token last year, and that's available on Ethereum, Arbitrum, and Base networks. And the idea for the token was always around the authorization and verification of the data. So when something gets sent out to verify the data, that can be done on chain and essentially validated on chain to avoid any of the issues. Sell this to we understand the needs of the Web3 communities. And having the ability of having one of these bots in their communities, in their Telegram, their Discord, again, moderators can cost at least $100 a month and still have to sleep, and that's at the very, very, very low end. Most moderators are a lot more, and a good moderator is in the thousands. We're talking, having the ability to have a 24/7 in any language moderator for your group that can answer the questions directly and quickly to anyone that asks. So it really becomes a really powerful tool for Web3 communities there. And same with the chatbots for the websites. A lot of Web3 websites are complicated to the average user coming to them, especially the first time users. So having something that's a bit more intuitive, instead of having to go straight to docs and white papers, which I'm not sure if anyone reads white papers anymore, but having something that's there trained on a white paper as an interactive experience so that anyone new to a project can get familiar with it directly becomes really, really powerful.
I completely agree, particularly on the community side. I mean, we've seen ecosystem failing because they're not managed properly. We see pressure on the organization before a token launch, because there are so many queries to answer. Something always go wrong, and manual work doesn't cut it. Launchpad ended up having a lot of problem because something go wrong and they cannot manage their ecosystem properly, right? The community will always need engagement, but it can be, as you said, as simple as presenting your tool to the market and having somebody working 24/7 there for you.
And for the moderators as well, having a reference source where it's trained on the documentation, having something that knows the product inside out that they can go to if they forget something or if they get a question in a DM they're not sure about, they can then tag the chatbot in to come and help and support. I think that's where it's really fun and it's amazing. Obviously, my chatbot is in all of our communities and groups. I get the amount of messages I get, or when I meet someone in real life, when it comes to like a conference or an event, and people are like, oh, I've chatted to your bot before. I've got to know you, and I didn't know you did this. I didn't know you were, I didn't know you lived in Mexico. I didn't know that all these things that you would just like find out about someone just by chatting to them normally, but you can kind of get a pre-screening of that. And we actually, we even use mine for pre-screening candidates for jobs, so that helps them to ask any questions they want to ask about the company, the culture, the team, anything really about the project or myself. And so it saves them from having to ask that during an interview, and it means I can focus more on the questions to them.
That's a great angle. I haven't thought about that, but yeah, you're right. Anywhere where it can bring efficiency, it's quite cool. It's ironic what you said because I had exactly the same conversation this morning, talking about something different that is called outreach. Somebody was saying when it's done properly is when you don't realize that there is a mass email, people actually replying, or when you meet them in person, they tell you something, they have the perceived feeling that they've learned something about you without talking to a bot or talking to something that is automated. So that is
Yeah.
quite powerful.
Yeah, but I mean, even then, it's amazing. Like, I've seen so this isn't available to most people. We can do it if someone does ask for it and request it, but it's not a popular request. But at one time, actually, I still do it every so often now. But I will put my chatbot behind my real Telegram account, and let it run my Telegram for a few days. And I've seen it have 100 message conversations with people without them realizing, and I find it fascinating that I can just sit back and literally just watch people talk to it and interact with it, and and more impressively watch the quality of the answers. I sit back and I'm like, wow, that's either exactly what I would say or that's better than what I would say, and it's really amazing to see that actually come out.
What is the process of training one? Or what's the burden on the client side?
Yeah, so like I said, it's light at the start. You connect your Twitter or your LinkedIn. If you're replicating someone who is like founder or CEO or salesperson, you connect to the person's Twitter and to their LinkedIn, and that would pull down some information about themselves. You write in the company information and your job title, and basically with that, it can pull enough information to, like I said, pre-fill everything with the AI and the personality, the tags, everything that's kind of relevant for it. After that, you'd go to, let's say, the document uploader, and you would upload whichever documents, white papers, product information that you need to have in there, any links that you need to process so that the customers get sent to the right places, any websites you need scraping, any YouTube videos you want scraping to ingest. And then there's a dynamic interview process as well, where the training bot gets to know you really well, and it asks you these kind of like a bit more roundabout questions, things that you wouldn't normally think to put into a chatbot. They round out the personality and also just give it a bit more depth. So someone actually asks, a question about the individual themselves, and it has the answers there. And then after that, that can be as long or as little as you like. That you can have that done in an hour or less, or you can have it done half an hour probably if you're quick, or it can be hours later if it's just a lot of data and a lot of things to search out for. After that, it's a very quick embed. So it's a 3-step. You can customize the widget for a website with your colors, your fonts, your style. And for Telegram and Discord, it's just 3 steps to enable you to create the bot using the API from Sensay, and it's pretty seamless and quick. So you could have this all set up in a matter of minutes, really.
We covered a couple of use cases from Web3 founders of the Web3 industry in general. If you have more, please tell us. If you want even to give a shout to any of your clients, feel free to do it. But also, you have seen other company doing it, other client implementing it with maybe some of your competitors. So when do things go wrong? What are the mistakes that you have seen in the space?
in the space in general or in
When
chatbots?
people try to implement a bot or build one or buy one.
I think the biggest mistake is really the kind of psychology behind it. The people are sometimes a bit too harsh on themselves because, and this comes back to the philosophy. Ironically, I studied philosophy years ago, and in fact, that's what actually started the whole movement towards sensays, is creating these virtual humans. And it's more of a philosophical issue because when we have the philosophy of identity, we have the version of identity that we have for ourselves is often very different to that other people have of us. I've met you a few times now. That my perception of you as an individual may be very different to the way that your friends or family view you, and that might be completely different to how your kids view you. But all of these are a version of your own identity. But very rarely are we the same person to the same people consistently on all platforms. You post images and nice, pretty captions on Instagram, but you might be a horrible shit poster on Twitter. So our identity is very subjective based on the person we're interacting with and the medium that we're interacting with on. The problem is that when people are creating a chatbot, they have a vision inside themselves of what they sound like because that's who they think they are. But often it's very different to how the chatbot and the personality ends up being built based on the information they trained it on. So when you upload some of your messages or your LinkedIn profile or whatever else, that's actually how people perceive you. But it sometimes doesn't always match up with how you perceive yourself. So the only big issue we have really is that some people like they see the response, they're like, oh, I wouldn't write that. And the reality is it's trained on them and everyone else would perceive it to be a response from them. So it's really just this kind of perception of who we are and how we write things and what we write. And it's a hard one to overcome because people, if you're training the data on things like your LinkedIn, your Twitter, and your emails and messages and docs, that maybe not exactly the way you actually end up writing may not actually be the way that you see yourself. So when you're reading back messages, what's meant to be in your own voice, you might think, oh no, that's not me, whereas it is in terms of everyone else's perception of you. So that's probably the biggest sort of hiccup for people when they go through this. But overall, I mean, we've got a hugely positive response from customers and clients, and we've got over I think 50,000 replicas or chatbots created on our platform now, and hundreds of customers across different sectors.
How was your experience with the launch of a token? I mean, you are not, despite, as you said, Web3 is in your DNA, we're talking about an AI company here. So that's actually, I think, quite interesting for the audience. So
Sure.
for a company that is not designing a wallet or whatever, how was the experience of using a token to grow the business?
I mean, it worked great for us. We were very lucky with timing of the market and the hype cycle around AI the early part of last year. It was tough. I mean, when everyone thinks about launching a token, because we did it in a very strange way. We didn't do any like pre-seed or seed rounds. We actually did this as our fundraising round, as our early fundraising round, as a way of um, you know raising capital to build what we want to build. We had a target of like 500K, and we ended up raising about 3.4 million, which is fantastic. But but without any sort of VC's guidance, without any of the support from the incubators or the different centralized exchange platforms to sort of really launch it with, it was a struggle. And building that hype, building that belief and that hope, and what you can actually show people in terms of what this is capable of, really came down to the team. And then the costs, the cost of actually launching a token, if you want to do it properly, obviously anyone can go on pump.fun or whatever and launch a token in a few seconds and it will disappear a few seconds later. If you're looking to actually launch something properly, the costs are significant. The amount of time and effort that you have to put in is significant. You've got
Absolutely.
to really focus on building the community, building the hype, building the awareness, showing confidence, showing the capabilities and team. And you got to just, for me, it was always about getting rid of as many red flags as possible. So anytime someone would raise an issue, would it be something like, oh, your liquidity is not locked, or there's something's wrong with the tokenomics, or whatever it was, we would try and remove as many red flags. Our token at the start was a bog standard ERC20 Ethereum token with a layer zero OFT included, so we could go multi-chain when we wanted to. We still, even though we didn't need to, we still got two audits from two reputable auditors at not a decent cost, just because we wanted to answer the question of has it been audited, and even though we really didn't need to at that point, we wanted to say yes, it has been audited by these two, and it's these guys have given it the top marks and security. So it came literally straight from Open Zeppelin in terms of the code. So it was like, it was really out of the box, highly secure. But we still did that anyway as a way of proving to ourselves and the community that what we're doing was a quality project, and we were going to be around here for the long term. And that's still our goal today.
Incredible. No, it resonates so well with our mission. Launching a token, creating an exchange, or building a project, it's tough. And it's tough to find the right support, particularly if you don't get into an accelerator or you have a VC. So even finding those auditors that you mentioned, making sure that the price was right, that's exactly why Semoto was built in the first place. Try to give you all the tools that you need in one place.
Yeah, you're right. Even things like, searching for the right law firm in the right space, the right launch pads to speak to, the right partners for marketing and BD. There's so many different aspects that go into launching any project, really, let alone just a Web3 project. But having marketplaces like Semoto really is a great resource for anyone who's starting out today.
Thanks, Dan. What is next on the roadmap for Sensay? What are you guys building next that is cool that you can disclose?
So right now we're heads down on AI chatbots. We're just improving them. We've got good analytics dashboards coming out, making them as powerful as they can be for the customers. We're expanding into a couple of new markets, but really just reaching out and essentially in the marketing, distribution, and customer acquisition phase. So it's a big growth phase for us right now. Coming up after that, we were looking at. We've got a few other concepts for new products in the pipeline that we're looking at. Everything from this idea around knowledge transfer of retirees in Web2 in large companies through to different verticals for the Sensay tech stack, because we built this really powerful engine that can essentially create these virtual humans. And so we're actually we have it available via our API to different individuals wherever they want, if they want to build on top of us for a different use case. And that could be for gaming, could be for healthcare, for education, for networking, job hunting, matchmaking. There's so many different ways this technology can be applied. So we wanted to focus ourselves on what we do best for B2B, but we've made the rest of it available via our API for people to build on top of us. And we run regular hackathons with quite large prizes for anyone who wants to get involved in that.
Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. At the bottom of the podcast, I will put your company profile so people can get in touch, see the reviews that the ecosystem has left for you. Personal shout, we at Semoto are using Sensay. We're extremely happy. Great company, amazing team. Dan, thank you so much for taking the time. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.